Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kerzner.
Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul Kerzner. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now, and I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this amazing present moment. The title and topic for today's podcast is Alleviating Anxiety with Presence. You know, this day and age, especially with how many distractions we have, multitasking, it's really easy to experience some level of anxiety. And some people might say, well, I don't have anxiety, but there's a good chance that at some point in your day that you're feeling anxious. So, whether we're alleviating anxiety or a sense of anxiousness, it doesn't really matter what or how you're going to define it. It's just more of a feeling space and how much of an acute or chronic issue it has become in your life. I specialize in the treatment of anxiety, stress, and depression at my acupuncture clinic. And I think that I do it really well because I've experienced anxiety, stress, and depression in my life at some point. And I have found that, there are many ways to deal with emotional challenges. Acupuncture, Chinese medicine is really helpful. And I'm very grateful, personally speaking, for the experiences I've had within myself, as well as with the patients that I work with, because acupuncture has this amazing effect on the nervous system. But setting aside traditional Chinese medicine, what I will say is that presence is an amazing tool for alleviating anxiety and a feeling of anxiousness. What I have seen is that anxiousness and anxiety have everything to do with worry. And worry is usually to do with the future. And as you know, the past and the future are mental constructs. They're not real. They're just created in our minds. And they have very little to do with presence or the present moment. They are just there as distractions. So one of the first steps towards being present is awakening to the present moment. It is being aware of how you feel, of what you're thinking and what you're doing. And that gives you a sense of clarity so that you can really hone in on what the root cause is of whatever the sensation or experience that you're really not enjoying, and what's causing it. And when we're looking at anxiety, there's nothing better than to really understand why you feel the way you do, because if you don't, you're just acting through an emotion that is just going to keep triggering itself. Anxiety creates more anxiety. And that's just the truth. And so the first question that you need to ask yourself is, am I being present? And that should be an obvious one at this point after 42 podcasts. But the follow-up question is, why am I experiencing this anxiety? Why am I feeling so anxious? And you might not get an answer right away. But if you keep on asking yourself that question, you keep on observing your emotions and your behaviors and your thought patterns, you'll start to see that deeply rooted within your anxiety is a sense of worry. The worry could be about anything. It depends on what's making you so anxious. A lot of people get anxious about their finances. People get anxious about their careers, about their children, the list is endless. And especially with how fast-paced reality has become, we could thank that to technology. And for the record, I am very grateful for the amazing technology that we have. But it has created an underlying sense of anxiety that's been prevalent throughout our society, our modern-day society. And presence is the answer. So using presence tools is a great way to alleviate your anxiety. Now, before you start treating your anxiety, what I would say is just to watch your words. Saying I have anxiety or I am an anxious person is taking ownership of that, and it actually is recreating it for yourself. You are actually becoming your words. I would personally say that, in the past I've experienced some anxiousness, and every now and again it creeps up into my reality, but I'm working on it, and I'm doing my best to treat it in a very safe way. And that's a bit of reframing, which sounds a lot better than just saying I have anxiety or I'm anxious. Now, if you go to a psychiatrist, I'm sure they'll offer you a litany of different psychiatric medications, and I have no doubt that they are somewhat effective. And when I say somewhat, medications, especially from Western medicine, have a very temporary effect in general, meaning that they'll get you through the day. And then the medication wears off, and then you're back to where you started from. So it might be helpful, especially if you're just really trying to get through the day, which is the definition of survival mode. But really the goal is to live. And anxiety is an experience, and we can look at it as a signpost. We can look at it as a reflection point, showing you that there's something going on here that you're not paying attention to, that's asking for your focus. It's asking for you to dig a little bit deeper instead of just trying to combat it or to deny it. And that just creates more of whatever it is that you're dealing with. So if you are experiencing any level of anxiety, like I said, the first steps are asking if you're being present, and then asking why you're experiencing this anxiety, but to start observing the thoughts that are creating that sense of anxiousness, and then untwining them, confronting each thought, and whatever that thought is, it doesn't matter. If it has nothing to do with the present moment, then you have to let it go, because 9 times out of 10, anxiety has nothing to do with the present moment. Now that's, it's not a 10 out of 10 deal, because there are plenty of experiences that we can go through that can create a sense of anxiousness. But when we're feeling that anxiousness, we're actually just not being present. It's pulling forward memories of the past or worries of the future, and it's creating that anxiety. So if you were to use your tools, breathing is the first thing that comes to mind. And I would say breath work is a tremendous way of helping to alleviate anxiety when you're experiencing it. It can be used on the fly. So, and it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Even if you just start monitoring your breaths in and out, in and out, in and out, or, taking a deep breath in and holding it for a good 3 to 5 seconds and then letting it out. Taking a deep breath in for 3 to 5 seconds and then letting it out. That will lower your heart rate, because a lot of times when we're feeling anxious, our heart rate starts to speed up. We start breathing heavier. Some people start to sweat, racing thoughts. It's actually really quite common of an experience. But if anything, we want to look at those experiences, those symptoms of anxiety as opportunities. So instead of backing down from them, we can look at them and say, okay, like this is how I'm feeling, and I want to understand why. And a good reminder for anyone going through any experiences or living with any sense of anxiety is the reminder that everything is constantly changing. One of the issues that I've seen with anxiety is you get into this mind state where you feel like it's always gonna be like that. That sense of anxiety is going to be prevalent forever. And if you're working on being present, you're constantly reminding yourself or remembering or whatever it is that everything is constantly changing, everything's constantly shifting. How you feel in this present moment is going to be different than how you feel in the next present moment, which is going to be different than the moment that's going to be after that. And that is the beauty of doing your work and having a mindfulness practice, is that it becomes so ingrained that when you start feeling certain emotions or experiences that you don't necessarily enjoy, you're always able to remember that everything is, nothing is permanent and everything is changing, everything is shifting. And it is a very good way of living your life. And it will end a lot of self-inflicted suffering because you remember that nothing is permanent. So the anxiety that you've been experiencing, even though it might have been around for a while, it's not going to be around forever. And, we need to learn how to let that go anyway, because you are not your anxiety. The symptoms that anxiety creates do not define who you are. And again, it is just an opportunity. It is not a problem. It is an opportunity to overcome. It is an opportunity to better understand yourself and why you feel the way you do, to understand, what some of your challenges are, and to think about how you want to proceed from them. Because you can't let something like anxiety rule your life. And it certainly will if it goes unchecked. If you just go along with it, if you allow the triggers to control who you are, if you become defined by something like that. And I'm not detracting from how real anxiety is or how real it feels, but it is just another part of the human experience, and it has to be looked at as such. There have been many people throughout the dawn of civilization, throughout the beginning of humanity, that have experienced some level of anxiety and have been able to overcome it. So you are no different. It just seems to be a lot more prevalent and common these days, but it doesn't mean it's no different than any other time. So you have to really use your tools. I talked about breath work. Creating a mindfulness practice in the morning is really important because you can start your day with presence. You can create a really strong baseline. And, I talked about that in the second or third podcast about, having really strong repetition within your mindfulness practice so that presence becomes a part of your daily life. So that when you start feeling some level of anxiety, that you're able to pull yourself back to that baseline. And you can do that through, a multifaceted, multi-layered mindfulness practice with breath work, guided meditations, affirmations about anxiety, journaling about whatever experiences that you're having so that you can better understand why you feel the way you do. But we're really just, and what I'm talking about is just a way of simplifying the experience. And that's really what it comes down to, is because if we can simplify anxiety, and we don't need to go so deep into it and understand the neural pathways and why these things are happening in your brain, it's not really that important. Like, we just want to simplify it in a way so that we can use our tools and feel better without the need for psychotropic medications, without the need for numbing ourselves, self-medicating. How many people do that? And it's funny because when people self-medicate, it actually just compounds the issue. Really understanding why you feel the way you do, truly understanding and relating to yourself in a way that feels much better, is a very healthy way of living this life, of navigating your reality, of alleviating your anxiety. And a lot of times anxiety is caused by the denial of going deeper within. Because you just refuse to better understand it. You just would rather ignore it or turn it off. And that and the repression creates more of it. The denial creates more of it. And I'm not saying that you need to embrace and love your anxiety, but that would be a good start, because once you do, it gives you the opportunity to kind of untwine it and look at it for what it really is. And what it really is just another emotion, another experience in your life. And again, it doesn't define who you are. You are not your anxiety. You are a human being who's having an experience. You're a human being that needs to look within, needs to do a little bit more self-discovery, and will better understand ways to deal with those feelings when they arise. Because at some point, everyone feels anxious. There's no one that is excluded from that experience. It's just some people seem to deal with it better than others. And that's okay, because everyone's experience, everyone's life is different. I'm hoping that by addressing anxiety, we can look at it for what it is. So I hope that this podcast has been helpful for you. Anxiety is a very real part of living in the 21st century. And from my vantage point, it's not going to get any easier based on how intertwined our lives have become with technology and social media. It's going to be a matter of understanding why you feel anxious and what to do about it. And the tools that I have shared over and over again are effective for treating all kinds of emotional challenges, anxiety included. I experience anxiety, and I am sure to, go within and inject presence so that I understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and understanding better how to navigate the current experience that is occurring right in front of my face. I can't make it any more simple or succinct as I have been. This is a really straightforward issue, okay? And we don't need to complicate it. We need to look at it for what it is. You feel a little anxious? Okay. Are you being present? Are the feelings, the emotions that you're experiencing have anything to do with the present moment? If they don't, you have to let it go. If they do, okay, well, let's look at it. Why are you feeling triggered? Are the feelings, are the sensations that you're having, do they really have to do with what's going on right now? Or are you bringing the past or the future into that present moment? If you haven't had a chance to listen to any of our other podcasts, I strongly recommend that you do. We have had quite a few guest speakers, and I have spent a lot of time talking about presence in many different ways, shapes, and forms. Our podcasts are located on iTunes. They're also located on YouTube, and you can find them on our website, www.areyoubeinpresent.com. If you get a chance, you can also join our Facebook group, Are You Being Present?
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.